believe that being a defender requires more than building shooting skills on a range. It's also a development of the heart, mind, body, and spirit. Join us as we explore what it truly means to be a defender in your training and in your everyday life. Welcome to Defenders Live. Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Defenders Live. I am your host, Laura Thorson. Tonight, we're going to be diving into church security, why the threat level is so high right now, and actionable steps that we can take to protect ourselves. Our guest tonight is Keith Graves of Christian Warrior Training. He has extensive experience as a police sergeant and he is a SWAT team veteran. I first learned about him when a friend of mine sent me the Lakewood shooting video where he did a thorough analysis and breakdown on that event. And it was quite eye-opening and very educational. So I decided to reach out to him and have him come on the show. So I'm looking forward to hearing what he has to say tonight. I do have a short tidbit of the week that I'll run by you that I want to share. So stay tuned for that in just a little bit. But first, if you're new or watching this as a replay, welcome. We're so glad that you're here. Please drop in the comments where you're watching from. We always want to hear from you. This is live for a reason, and that is so that you, the audience, can engage with us during the show. Quick announcement. This episode is brought to you by Patriot Mobile. Patriot Mobile is America's only Christian conservative wireless provider. They offer broad nationwide coverage using the same towers as the big guys, but for much less per month. Patriot Mobile has plans to fit any budget, and their customer support team is based 100% in the USA. More importantly, they share your values and support organizations fighting for religious freedom, your constitutional rights, the sanctity of life, and our veteran and first responder heroes. So if you're interested in checking out Patriot Mobile, check out the link in the description below. All right, so let me move on to the tidbit of the week, and then I will announce my, co-host / behind-the-scenes guy, Adam Winch, for those of you that don't know him. But I want to switch gears here for just a second, and this came to me today, and it's nothing super, I don't know, it's not groundbreaking, I guess, but it's something that I want to share with you because I think that there might be people out there that need to hear this. So the tidbit of the week is called Who Do You Trust? So it seems as though now more than ever, we're living in a very untrusting world. People don't trust the media anymore. They don't trust the people in charge, and sometimes don't even trust each other for that matter. And so we're living in a very unique environment right now. And I was talking to a good friend recently on this topic of trust. And obviously then the topic of disappointment came up. And this person was having a really hard time trusting others because of things that had happened throughout their life where they had been really let down multiple times, even by those who they love dearly. And so if you've been let down or taken advantage of by those closest to you, shout out in the comments. This is one of the worst feelings in the world. Am I right? Wanting somebody to be something maybe that they're not, or they don't have whatever it is that you would like them to offer you, and you just can't trust them. Navigating that disappointment over and over can be very difficult to do. And I too have struggled with that very issue many times in my life. In fact, there were times where I was so crushed by the actions of others that I vowed to never trust again, and that I thought I could never be hurt again. But the truth is that no matter what you do, you will be hurt. This is the world that we live in. And it's not something that many of us really want to think about. We always want to see the best in people, right? And but we know that they will in fact let us down at some point. I mean, how many times do you let yourself down from time to time, right? The severity may vary, but inevitably it will happen. And this used to be something I struggled with regularly until I found a new perspective. And I shared this with my friend, and that's why I wanted to share it with you tonight, and in hopes that it might help somebody. Once I learned the truth that we are living in a fallen world and that humans are prone to fail time and time again, I no longer put my faith in people. So let me explain that. We are all walking, talking hot messes, right? I am a hot mess and I fail every day. Um, but I still love people and I try to forgive them even when they hurt me. But even my closest friends and family will let me down without even meaning to, right? Can you guys relate to that? So instead, I choose to put my faith in Jesus Christ. And I have to say, for me, it has changed my life completely. And it has changed my perspective on the world completely. I have peace now that I've never had before. So now when a person does me wrong or hurts me, of course I'm disappointed. But it doesn't strike me as hard as it once did. It's not that I expect it to happen, but instead of resenting them and hanging on to that pain, I now have a way to let go of it. Our Lord does not let us down, ever. It certainly may feel that way at times, but I promise you, He does not. But people always will, even without meaning to. And learning that has made all the difference in the world for me. What we perceive to be the worst possible day of our lives, He will work for good and for His glory. When you open yourself up to His will, you will experience life differently by knowing that your faith and trust in Him is the only way to navigate the world that we live in with any kind of peace in your heart. Proverbs 3:5 says, "Trust the Lord with all your heart, and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will make your path straight." I know someone out there today is hurting and struggling to make sense of it all right now. Put your faith in Him and trust Him. His ways are not our ways, and we could never understand them. But it's okay to let go and trust Him and not our own understanding. So I hope that that helps someone out there today. It certainly helped me when I made that shift. And so there's my tidbit of the week. Who do you put your trust in? Okay. Is Adam Winch back in the house? He is. Hey, Mr. Adam. Adam is the founder of Defenders USA, and he is back as well as I am, actually live on the broadcast after a week, at least a week for you, of a Girl and a Gun national conference in Grand Junction, Colorado. How you holding up, Adam?
I'm doing great. It's good to be home, right? Just literally pulled into the door probably 30, 40 minutes ago. So it spent 6.5 days on the range and a few more days doing some other stuff. So you were there. It was fantastic thing. Hey, on your little tidbit there, if
Yes,
I
sir.
can encourage folks, go read the last two verses of Jude. That would be a good thing to add to this. So
Thank you.
glad you're here. And I can't tell you how excited I am for this guest. I followed this man for a long time. I've come to admire his career, his life, and what he's doing. And it's not our fault he's dumb enough to come on our show. I'm just glad he's here. So
He said yes.
I'll get
All
off.
right. Thanks, Adam. All right, so before I bring Keith on here real quick, a few more announcements before we begin. Defenders Live is now officially on almost every podcasting platform, including Spotify and Apple Podcasts, so be sure to subscribe and leave a review if you like what you hear. We would really appreciate that. That is really helpful to our business. Is this a business? That's an act of love at this point, but it's really helpful anyway. And if you don't want to miss another episode of Defenders Live, go to defenders-live.com. Go to the bottom of the homepage, sign up for email notifications, and I'll send you an email letting you know what to expect each week on Defenders Live. You can also join us on Facebook. We have a private group there as well. So don't be shy. If you have comments during the show, feel free to chime in. And we're going to have a live Q&A at the end of the broadcast. If a question pops in your head, put it in the comments, and we'll gather those at the end of the show. Do I have time to shout out? Let me just take a quick peek at who is here. Hey, Tracy, I see you. Kathy from Michigan. Chuck from Texas. I don't know, CR from Texas, Heather from Arizona. Hey, Heather. She was at A Girl and a Gun too, and so was Kathy. Joy from Florida. Hi, Joy. Were you in Colorado last week? I'm not sure if I met you or not. But anyway, thank you guys all for watching. Really appreciate all of your comments and banter along the show. So let's get right into the interview, shall we? With Keith Graves. The reason that you're listening tonight, Keith Graves is a retired police sergeant serving for 29 years and a 20-year SWAT team veteran with extensive experience in narcotics investigations, training, and leadership. He's also the founder of Graves and Associates, which provides drug training globally. Drawing on his experience and passion for protecting communities, he created Christian Warrior Training to empower churches with the knowledge and tools they need to create a safe and secure environment for their members. So let's bring Keith Graves onto the show. Hey, Keith.
Hey, how are you?
Oh, I'm excited to have you on, and I really appreciate you taking the time tonight.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
And it turns out that we are neighbors because you're in Idaho and
Yeah.
I'm in Montana.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah. I mean, that's great. I might have to come visit you someday.
It's Idaho's a beautiful place. I know where you're at. Montana is too. It's a great part of the country.
Except tonight it's snowing and it's May 1st, but it's okay.
We're lucky. We just have rain right now. So, but it'll change tonight. I'm sure it'll be snow tonight.
Yeah. Just wait till tomorrow. It'll change. All right. So let's start with, here's kind of like my breakdown. I don't know if we'll get there in an hour because I took up some time with the tidbit, but I wanted to first start a little bit with your background so people can get to know you, what Christian Warrior Training is. Then I want to talk about what the show title is, which is what's happening right now. Why do we have a high threat with churches right now in America? Potential solutions to that problem. What can we do? And then I have a training question and a personal question if we have time. So let's start with Christian Warrior Training. What is the mission behind that? Why do you focus specifically on churches? Where did this all come from?
So when I got on my church security team, I remember I walked into church. It was a new church. I just moved to Idaho, and I was like, "Hey, I'd like to serve." And they were like, "Oh, well, you are a cop. Are you a gun guy?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I'm a gun guy. I mean, obviously you can tell I love guns, right?" And he goes, "Great, you'd be for the safety ministry." And I'm like, "Wait a minute." Like that's all it took was I'm a gun guy. It's more to it than that, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, and what I saw was the people that I work with were awesome, but they had no training. Like they, what they thought they can do is not realistically what they could really do.
Yeah.
And my full-time job since I retired is training cops. I mean, literally almost every day of every week, I'm training law enforcement somewhere. And so I just wanted to bring more professionalism to church safety teams. And so I started creating training for my guys. And then I decided to put everything online. And I was putting it online because I wanted to streamline our training so we can do more. It's called reality-based training. It's training where it's hands-on, and where they can experience like a shooting before it actually happens. And the only way to do that is to move training online. So I moved like the classroom stuff online, and I thought, you know what, I should probably just let word of mouth, let everybody know they can just go take this training for free. And I had no clue that it was going to become as big as it is. I mean, to give you an idea, between where the training's hosted, YouTube, and then the Substack where the newsletter's at, I'm sitting at around 2 million views every month.
And you just started the channel last year. I saw
October. Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, that YouTube channel's at 87,000 people right now.
I saw that.
What
like, how did he do that?
So it's funny. I've run social media for a long time, so I kind of understand algorithms and how to get the word. And I just used what I've been doing for other stuff and brought it into this. And to be honest, this is now Christian Warrior is now becoming my full-time job. I mean, I didn't intend it to be. And to be honest, the law enforcement training side is kind of where I make my living.
Yeah.
But people have been so nice donating money for that newsletter that it's allowed me to take less law enforcement classes and then concentrate more on Christian Warrior. and focus my time over there. God sent me in the right direction, because I'm not going to lie. Like I've been in training and being a cop. It's been 36 years, and I'm getting really tired, and being in law enforcement is kind of a bad place to be right now.
Yeah.
And I was doing a lot of praying about, like, should I quit training? Because for what I teach, there's not a lot of backfill. There's not a lot of people that can teach it anymore. And this door opened up, and I think it was God directing me this direction to start training people. So
Yeah,
yeah,
and I hope we get to the point where we can expand on that a little bit later on
yeah.
all of the details of what happened, because it is quite a story. So thank you for that background. And so your bio obviously already said, you know, years of experience that you have. We know that you're training people. If there's nothing that we missed in that, if there's nothing else left to be said about that, I think we should jump, unless Adam has something to say, which he always does.
So I want to jump in here, right? Keith, can you expound on this if you don't mind? Right? You stepped out to do a thing, and then it seemed like you just got selected based on your training, your experience, your background. Almost God called into something you weren't expected, which is this and more. To me, it seems like that is a common theme amongst the believers, that God takes your background, good or bad, and just uses that some way to really serve others and enhance others, and really to enhance his kingdom. What are your thoughts on that? Is that what happened to you? Because that's what it feels like as I've watched you.
Oh, totally. 100%, man. It's funny, like, right when I started this, I'm like, man, I was thinking to myself, I don't know if I have time to devote to what it's becoming.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got an email from a guy who said, hey, we took my entire team, we took all of your online classes. Thank you for making it free. We all took the training. We've never had training. We had a critical incident at our church. I think if we had not had that training, things would have gone very badly. And because of that training, everything turned out okay. And I've since received, like, just not lots of emails, but emails occasionally from people that are telling me the same thing. And it feels good. And it's reassuring. Whenever I feel down, like, I don't think I can do this, like, I don't think I can keep up, I'll get an email or a comment or something, and I know what's happening, right? We all do, right?
Yeah.
To be honest too, I was, Adam, you know how law enforcement is right now.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's rough. And, like, I'm training stuff to guys that they're not going to ever be able to use.
Yeah.
And it's or guys get in trouble because they're using the stuff they're being trained to do, And I've been praying for a long time, like, hey, where do I go? What do I do? Because I'm not going to say this is all I know, but this is what I've been doing, forever. And I think Christian Warrior, I think it was needed, to be honest.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
Yeah, I think it was needed. I think God put me in there because it's got to happen. I mean, when we get into threat levels right now, and we'll talk a little bit about, like, threat levels and where we're at right now and where we're headed as a country. I think this is stuff I've set up in law enforcement through my whole career, and now I'm just bringing it to churches. And I think God put me here for a reason, and that we're going to see something bad happen here in our short, in the short amount of time coming up. And,
it's coming. It's coming.
100%. Yeah. And
well, I just sit there and I think of your career, almost 3 decades of law enforcement. And we're talking, for folks, if you've not done this, right, you're talking 3 decades of blood, tears, joy, exhilaration, the hunt, being hunted, being in the fight and seeing evil day to day. And to me, Keith, I just look at that as, though that was the cool side, right, the Hollywood side of things in a sense, it's almost like God used that to prepare you, honestly, for this. Though that was considered the cool part, this is really the ultimate mission. And to me, I just sit there and think of all the things people have gone through, right? You look at Laura's path and her growth to this day, it's to call her to this, right? And it's really about others. It's always about others, right? Or about the mission that comes. And I'm so grateful for you and the path you've lived, not realizing it's going to drive you to this, and yet look where it's at. And now it's to guide others. So I'll jump back out. I noticed that as you talk, that you got built for this through a lifetime of really things many people can't experience for themselves.
Adam, real quick before you leave, I mean, you probably feel the same way. Like you'll have like a major call, and then you resolve it safely, and you're like, "Is this why God put me in that? Was it for this day?"
Mm-hmm.
And then there's something else, and then there's something else, and then there's something else, and you're completely right about all this is building up for a specific thing, and I think it is Christian Warrior. I think it all is all coming for that reason.
Thank you for answering the call.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, so we got to move on though, because we're 20 minutes in. So let's talk about the title of the show. Why are churches at such a high threat level now? When did that change? Recently, I think that changed. And can you describe what you're talking about? Describe that whole system you put into place.
Yeah. So think of for the older people on here, the people can remember back to 2001, 2002. And remember when Homeland Security was a new agency and they came out with a terrorism alert level. We had, in fact, I'm looking at it right now. We had low, which is green. We had guarded, which is blue, meaning basically guarded would be a general risk of attack. We had yellow, which was an elevated, which is significant risk of attack. That one is where we started off at. And then you have high, which is orange, where we are now, and that's a high risk of attacks. And then you got severe, and that means that's red. That means there is a risk of attack, or that an imminent attack is coming.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was the old system. They got rid of it. And I can't remember why they got rid of it. I remember when they got rid of it, I thought, man, that's dumb, because it helps us kind of conceptualize what danger we're in this country. And the federal government has really taken their eye off of the threat level in the United States. So for maybe people don't know, but when I go to conferences, the FBI will show up at a conference. I'll be teaching. I'll go in and see what the FBI is going to say now. And I've been really disheartened by what they're saying. And basically what they're saying is just the Joint Terrorism Task Force, the JTTF, will come in and give a brief on terrorism in the United States. And I've heard this in two separate conferences where the JTTF commander says, Middle Eastern terrorism is not the problem anymore. It's right-wing extremism.
Oh, wow.
And then, and all the cops are just going like, wait a minute, like, we know that's not true. Right. And we have been calling them out. I watched good cops in the audience calling them out for not listening. And then here we are right now where we have, I listened repeatedly, is the FBI director would say this is the most significant risk he's ever seen in his lifetime as a cop, and that it's worse. He's seeing more signals for a terrorist event happening in the United States than he did prior to 9/11. And conspiracy theories aside, it is very clear to me that the FBI is setting it up to where they can go, oh, but we were letting everybody know when it does happen, to say we've done something. And so a lot of this was they would send out alerts to law enforcement, and I don't get those alerts anymore. But obviously I have a big network of cops that know me, who know that I'm Christian, that send me the alerts. And it clearly said that it's an FBI alert that says, hey, churches, synagogues, and large venues are at high risk of attack. But they never conveyed that to churches. They never said anything to them. And I watched as the federal government did not do any kind of an alert for them. Major associations weren't putting out, hey, we're at a high risk of alert. And so I'm like, you know what? I got a big following, and I'm going to use it for my good. And So I brought back the terrorism alert levels. There's no need to redo the wheel. It's already been done.
Mm-hmm.
I started off, I put it up just probably a month ago, 2 months ago, and I set it elevated because there was nothing substantial to say there was anything different. And I'm taking this really seriously. I mean, I'm looking at what people are saying, the intelligence being put out, and I'm trying to follow it so I can be diligent in addressing what our true threat level is. And then, so basically what we saw was the FBI put out 2 alerts in the last month, alerting law enforcement to give extra patrol and to be cognizant of large venues and churches, saying that they have indicators that those are going to be attacked. Then we have all the people to call special interest aliens, or SIAs, that have crossed the border, including an Afghan that was on the terror watch list, that they knew was on the terror watch list, that they let go.
Wow.
And they let him back into the wild. But hey, it's all good. They gave him a court date to appear in Texas in 2025. Now, this guy can roam all over the United States, and he's part of a terrorist group in Afghanistan, and he's here, and he's the one we know about. What about the ones that we don't know about?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Over on my channel, I interviewed a Joint Terrorism Task Force agent who specifically worked Hezbollah, and he talked specifically about the threats about Hezbollah in the United States, and in his estimate, which he would know, he's the guy that works Hezbollah. He said that there were, in his estimate, 30,000 Hezbollah sleeper agents in the United States right now.
Wow.
And we've got New York. Then there's like little things that regular people don't pay attention to, but cops notice. NYPD brought in the National Guard to help patrol the subway system.
Mm-hmm.
And they started doing mandatory bag checks in the subway. Now, think about the Fourth Amendment issues of mandatory bag checks. I mean, that's, you should not be doing that. And they're doing it because they're outweighing the risk of illegal Fourth Amendment search versus somebody coming in with a bomb. I don't agree with it, but that's what they're doing. And so when I see this, it makes me realize, like, I think we're above elevated or yellow, which is like right in the middle. I think I can see things are not going. And then I saw an interview. Oh, and let me back up. We had the ISIS inspired kid in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, up here.
Oh, really?
So we had a kid that got arrested by the FBI. I do believe the kid wanted to attack a church, but I think the FBI might have helped him a little bit, like to set the stage. But regardless, you had a kid that more than likely was going to be an active shooter and had plans to shoot up a church on Sunday in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. And the FBI picked him up on Saturday. Well, nobody notified the churches that there was this imminent risk of attack, which would put us at red. Nobody said anything. And then after
why do you think they do that, Keith? Do they just not want anybody to go into a panic, or what do you think the reasoning is?
I think the big one is operational integrity, of like, oh, we got it under control, don't worry about it.
Oh.
And we don't want anybody to know, because what if there's somebody else, right?
Okay.
And all I got to say for that, because I do have FBI show up to a lot of my classes, and I have been very vocal about my displeasure about what the FBI is doing. And they show up to my class and they're like, oh, I saw your video where you slammed us. And I'm like, yeah, when are you going to get it together? Right. And I mean, we're talking like FBI's in my class probably like at least once a month. And they agree. I mean, these are agents, not supervisors. The agents are even like, we don't know what's going on. It's a
they're in
mess,
the dark.
right? I think when you look back at the FBI and you look at active shooters and like, oh, he was on our radar, it like becomes a meme now, where it's like, oh, he was on our radar, right? Well, what were you doing, man? like, come on. And so all these things happening. I saw an interview with Director Wray, FBI Director Wray, that he did on NBC, and he went back to this old system of elevated and whatever. He goes, his specific words were, we are at high risk of attack, which would put us at yellow, or not yellow, but orange, where we're at now. And he goes, I think that an attack is imminent. And we're at high risk of attack, which, puts us in orange. And he kept using words that would almost put us in red, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm listening to that and I'm like, and again, he's not telling the churches anything. And so
Right.
you have to interpret what he's saying. Look, I've been a cop for a long time. I've been in a lot of FBI briefings. I can tell this dude, it's scripted, but he's scripting it so he can cover himself if something bad happens. So I elevated it up to orange. And I debated, should we do red? But I think we're going to be at orange at a high risk of attack for a very long time. And I think we're going to be here for a while. And you do have to worry about kind of vigilance burnout, And so we'll keep it at orange. I can tell you right now, if we have more issues with Iran, basically what the intelligence that I had a long time ago in this Joint Terrorism Task Force agent that came on my YouTube channel, he confirmed was that if we end up dropping bombs on Iran, like the United States, not Israel, but look how close we came.
Mm-hmm.
Then Hezbollah will go ahead and get unleashed in the United States. And we know that there's probably 30,000 of them here in the United States right now. I do have a lot of Border Patrol in my classes, and they are confirming to me. I mean, you know how it is when you're an instructor. People they tell you things in confidence, knowing that like you can do something about this, right? They're confirming to me that there are people that are coming across the border that are Chinese special forces, Russian Spetsnaz. They are terrorism, people connected to terrorism, and nobody's releasing the information. And you can see it by the Border Patrol agents union, by them attacking the president, attacking government of like, why aren't we doing anything? So when you look at churches, they have clearly said that churches and synagogues are at high risk of attack. Their words, not mine.
And you're keeping tabs on this on a regular basis. I mean, you've got like news updates almost, and there are way more attacks than I even know about that are going on like right now throughout America.
Yeah. So every week I put out the church crime news, and I hate doing it because it's so like, it's sad looking at it. There's like I release it every Saturday so that teams can talk about it on Sunday. There's always somebody murdered. There's always shooting, stabbings at a church, somebody taken hostage in a church, somebody robbed at a church. There's always multiple sexual assaults committed by our people working in the church. Mm-hmm. There's always like the property crimes, vandalism, theft. I mean, that I only take the biggest ones and then put those in because those are just run of the mill, right? And the sad thing is that a lot of these can be stopped. Like this weekend, a 15-year-old boy was murdered in the bathroom of in a church in Florida, and it was over a dispute for drugs. And a lot of people in the comments, when I'll do a YouTube video or something about it, they'll say in the comments like, well, why are they buying drugs and bring a gun into church, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I don't think people realize it. Like when you have a church in a rough neighborhood, that's what they do. They bring people in. And what did Jesus do? Jesus went and talked to prostitutes and talked to bad people to try to teach them the gospel. And, when we should be bringing the gospel to these people, and that means you have to bring them in your church, but that doesn't mean they check their bad habits at the door. And right. So I have free training. I mean, it's all free. There's nothing, there's no gimmick. It's just,
there's no catch.
Yeah, there's no catch. Go on there right now. And I have training on identifying threats coming into your church, which includes how to identify armed persons. How do they have a gun on them? And I talk about all the indicators they could have a gun on them. I talk about iconology. Like you can tell by the shirt that I'm wearing, right, that I'm probably a decent guy, right, that I'm probably involved somewhere in the special operations community, and that I probably might have a skill set or something, right? And like using like when I look at your
I think
hat.
you call that common sense, don't you?
Well, it is common sense, but it's stuff that you and I look at. If you have situational awareness, that's the other thing. Is like if you have situational awareness, you notice these things.
Yeah.
But it's bringing a system to your situational awareness. And it's giving
Okay.
this system that you can now start looking at these things and know what it means and putting this system in place so you could be more effective at stopping threats from coming into the church. You know, we talk about conflict resolution and, you know, conflict de-escalation. And so
Mhm.
you see this kid come in and he looks like he's obviously carrying a gun because you look for the indicators that we teach in the class. And you go, hey, young man, come on over here. And then you go, welcome to the church, as you pat him down, right? You know, and you'd say, hey, you know, grab his gun and go, no guns allowed, you know, and it's like taking the cell phone off the student in school, but you're yanking his gun from him. Or, you know, if you see him start, having conflict, you get in there and go, hey, slow your roll, boys. And I am going to start doing drug impairment training, like how to identify people that are high. So that, because like my church, I'm in a mega church. My church, when I see them come, I see people high come in, not all the time, but every once in a while, because when people are at their lowest, they go to church, right? I see in the comment, Joy asked, where in Florida was this? This was in Sebring, Florida, where it happened. And you can go to christianwarriortraining.com, look at my last newsletter. You can read all about it. I put links to everything.
So do you have any information that you can share with us, since we kind of know a little bit more about the problem? Can we focus a little bit more on some solutions, just top level stuff that can help people navigate this? If they're on their church's security team, what can they do to
You froze up a little bit on me. So the big thing that they can do, first off the bat, is they can make sure that they watch the news
help?
and there we go. There we go. You're in and out for a minute. Are you back with me?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. So basically what people can do, the big thing is watch the news and see what's going on. Follow everything, right? Like watch all the national news. Listen to what people like an FBI director says. The next thing you want to do is, before you guys start working your church service, is do a briefing. Everybody get together and you talk about all the threats locally, in the state, and nationally. And then you talk all about that. And you cover all the bases. And then the other thing you want to do is when you post up, you should a lot of people want to either be right in front of the pastor or right where everybody comes into the worship center, or they want to be at the front door. You actually need to be in the parking lot. And you need to be in the parking lot by that front door, and no door should be open that doesn't have armed security there watching it. And then, but we want to keep our churches open. Don't get me wrong. We don't want to shut it down. We just want to make sure we have armed people watching those doors. And then you just want to go ahead and sit outside that front door watching people because all problems are going to come from the parking lot. Because think of it like an active shooter. If he comes to your church to shoot it up, he's got to park in the parking lot. Think back to Lakewood shooting, right, in Houston. She parked in front in a red lane with her four-way flashers on. My church, I don't see that a lot. I see elderly people get out. And instead, you see somebody get out with a trench coat and grab their kid, leave their car, and walk inside. People don't leave their car out front like that unless they're going to do something bad so they can get back into it and drive away after they do something bad. You know, these are all little indicators that you should be watching, right? The other thing is that a lot of times people are going to do surveillance ahead of time. They're going to drive to your church, drive around, look, and see what's going on. And you should pay attention to those people and see, like, I've seen that car 3 times now. Like, what are they doing? The last thing, scrub your website. So many of your churches have your interior map of your church on your website. There's no need for that. People are going to show up and they're just going to walk in. Nobody prints a map anymore and then walks in and goes, where's the worship center? And then like walk in and follow it, right? Like take that off. And then you can have the map when you walk in. And then most of us have we have greeters, a welcoming team, and they see the new people and go, "Hey, what can we do for you? Where do you want to go?" And we help them. Like that map helps them pre-plan an attack, and you don't want that up there.
Those are all really good things. Some of those I'd never heard before.
Hopefully it helps. I saw a question in there, like, what do you put in your briefing?
Yeah, go ahead and answer it.
All right. So we talk about everything. So you want to start off with, obviously, like, we start with a prayer, and then we get into business, and we talk about these are the things going on locally. Hey, this church had an issue over here. There's an increase in burglaries during churches. Like, I've been putting out a lot lately, that because you guys are in church for an hour, that's an hour that criminals have free reign of your parking lot to steal everything. And so I heard one of the team leads bring that up, and I'm like, yeah, way to go. And he's like, remember burglaries, get in the parking lot, start watching. We talk about the alert level is orange, that it's high risk of attack. Keep an eye out. And it's just reaffirming statements that, of what to do.
Okay. So is there anything else before we switch gears? I was going to move on to something else.
Go ahead. Let's hear it.
You have a dog too. My dog should be in here with me too. Everybody has their dog today. I wanted to know, Adam's laughing in the background. So you said that was one of the things I highlighted because I saw it in your Substack, was that 58% of people that are thinking about attacking do some sort of pre-attack reconnaissance, which I think it makes sense, but 58%, wow, that's a pretty high percentage. So when you said that number popped in my head.
Yeah, and your biggest threat is the insider, to be honest. It's going to be your youth.
Really?
Your youth ministry is a big insider threat. And then I'll tell you, like, for us, this is a really weird one. We live in a Mormon heavy state. LDS is, I live 800 feet from a temple. We have people that want to leave the Mormon church that show up to our Saturday service without their spouse and then go to Mormon church on Sunday morning. And I cannot tell you how many times we've seen an angry spouse throw those front doors open, coming to look for the spouse on Saturday night. And I didn't. Yeah. And I didn't realize this to a friend of mine. It was LDS, high up in the, he was next in line to become a bishop. And he saw the light, and it was a Bible study group of men in a iron sharpens iron Bible study. They convinced him that he was in the wrong place, and he decided to come to Christianity, come to Christ instead of to LDS. And the LDS church is telling his wife to divorce him.
Wow.
And so we see these conflicts come in, and we have a lot of domestic violence flare-ups in our church from stuff like this, or even outside of that. And so, I don't think an LDS person is going to necessarily shoot up our church, but it's definitely something that, we look at that on the threat matrix of, like, yeah, we have to worry about these angry spouses coming in and, conducting violence.
That's crazy. Well, I wanted to move on. Oh, I knew, Adam. I saw it in your face, Adam, that you were going to jump on the screen. What do you have, sir?
So, Keith, I'd like to get your thoughts, right? We have somebody that's just a dear lady who made a comment in here about carrying a church sometimes can feel wrong, right? My thought is this, right? Christ asked basically 20% or so of his disciples to get the assault weapon of the era, or the defensive tool of the era, which was the sword, right? I have a strong belief that we need the Joshuas, we need the Samsons, we need the Davids of the era, right?
Yep.
And that could be men, women, it doesn't really matter. We need defenders, those willing to protect the flock, but also to protect the human life. So to me, since somebody's asking that, or kind of going, hey, my intuition is that just feels violent. Would you address that?
Sure. There is lots of New Testament stuff that specifically addresses carrying weapons. And we know Luke, I can't remember, is Luke 28, where Jesus says, sell your knapsack and buy a sword, right? But we got Romans 13, 1-5, which is the cop staple, which is like it talks about evildoers. And like if you're an evildoer, you should be afraid, because basically God is sending a man with a sword, to come stop the evildoer right there. And then the Old Testament is just full of it, right? But I want to leave you with this. And this is because I felt the same way. I'm like, I carry it everywhere.
Everywhere.
Yeah. And let me tell you right now, side note, if you are capable and allowed to carry a firearm, which you're in the United States, you're allowed to carry a firearm, 100% you should be carrying it right now. Okay. Mm-hmm. With that said, I read a book, and it was, I can't remember the name of the book, but it was about officer-involved shootings, and it was about the psychology. It wasn't Grossman. It was another one. It was I can't remember her name. She's out of Washington. It was a police psychologist, and it was basically addressing like the trauma of being involved in a shooting. And she talked about one person that she was treating, and it was a police officer that carried everywhere he went, except for church.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've read this.
Yes. And when I read it, it floored me, right? He didn't bring it to church because he felt that it was wrong. And and then while he was at church, an active shooter came in and killed, it was at least 10 people. And I mean, killed at least 10, shot more than that. And he said all he could do was lay on the floor and hear everybody die.
So we're in agreement.
Oh my gosh.
But if you have the ability, the mindset, you should be carrying. In fact, you should be carrying, right? Yep. Because it's really not about you in the way I see it. It's about others or those who love you and need you there, right?
Yep.
So therefore, you have the right and the need to defend yourself, and it really comes down to love to others, or really just defending those who need it. Is that not a God-given calling? Mm-hmm. So. Okay, I'll jump back out.
And great point, Adam. We had an officer just get murdered last week. Tobin. He was a deputy with Ada County Sheriff's Department. He was in one of my classes. He makes a car stop, gets shot in the neck, on approach, gets shot in the neck. It severed his spine. Bullet went into his brain, killed him. His wife is 9 weeks pregnant with their first child. The first person to see it was just a random lady. And she was trying to treat him the best he could, right, or she could.
Yeah.
And all I thought the entire time was, I wish that was me. I trained for this. Like you're a normal lady. You don't need to see this. I trained for this. Like I was at the range all day today, just practicing. And it's like, I'd rather it be me. Not that I want to hurt somebody, but that like legitimately and I think, I want to stop that person. And I have to think to myself, what if that was a person? This is Idaho. Everybody has a gun in Idaho, right? I can't believe that nobody was driving by with a gun at that particular time that could have shot that guy and stopped him on that killing spree that he went on. You know what I mean?
Is there not a goodness and a righteousness to stopping evil? It's no different than taking out the trash, right? It's got to be done sometimes, and somebody's got to do it. And if you're God called, God appointed in that moment in time, able to do that, answer the call, right? It's a necessity, and it's no different than hunting for food or taking out the trash, and sometimes it just needs to be done. So thank you for addressing that.
Yeah. I really encourage people to read Romans 13, 1-5. And I think it's important for you to read that, and it'll help you feel a little bit better, about that. Reread Luke, where Jesus is telling them to go buy a sword. And I mean, there's clearly biblical precedent. I'm not a biblical scholar. I feel awkward sometimes citing scripture because I'm just not comfortable like everybody else is. Talk about hostage rescue or something, I'm down, man. I'll talk about that all day. But like this, it makes me uncomfortable. But if I'm able to tell you places to go in the Bible, it's probably pretty good.
That makes me feel a lot better, Keith, because when I did my tidbit too, I was like, I know this is true and I know this message is right, but I'm I'm still wet behind the ears on this faith thing, and I'm doing the best I can. But I still keep thinking, if it helps you, it could help somebody else. So,
oh, totally.
Thanks for saying that.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. There's not a lot of time left here in this hour, so I want to utilize it as best that I can. But I have two big things I want to talk about and
Let's
not
hear
enough
it.
time to do it. What should we? Okay.
We'll do them both. Come on.
Okay. Okay. Good. Because I really think the last one is really important. But okay, this one is more about training. And I read this article last night from Shooting Illustrated. Shelley Hill wrote this article called Tool Cycling. And she interviewed Chuck Haggard, there were quotes from Chuck Haggard in there, who's been in law enforcement for over 30 years, and he's a national level trainer. And this idea of tool cycling to me is really, and for some people that they might not get it, but for me right now in the training that I'm in, this is really valuable. I want to kind of get your opinion on this. So they talk about in this article these 8 main tools that you need. And I think that we get under the impression sometimes as gun carriers that gun is our only tool. And I think, in fact, we've got many, and this article addressed that. So the 8 main tools that they talk about are avoiding as a
Mhm.
concealed carry. Avoiding is a tool that you should use
Yep.
whenever you can. Practiced verbal commands and de-escalation techniques, which you touched on. Running away from the situation, which is a little bit different than a church security environment, I understand.
Yep.
But if there's shots going off and you can run away, and that's what you choose to do, right? If you're not a defender, then run away. Pepper spray is another tool that a lot of people should be carrying,
Yep.
that maybe aren't carrying, and that can solve a lot of problems if you've trained with that. Empty-handed skills or force on force is another one. Having a flashlight, having your
Mhm.
firearm, having a phone and a way to get help and call 911. And the last one is having life-saving skills, because we don't only want to stop the killing, we want to stop the dying. So
Yep.
what is your take on that? He says that people, especially students that he's had, Chuck said that they have a hard time with stacking cognitive decisions in a short period of time. So
True.
moving from something escalating to de-escalating or vice versa, and being able, what he calls tool cycling and what Shelley refers to in the article. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, he's completely right. I do agree. In church security, I even agree with, if you got to run away from a fight, you got to run away from a fight. If you're not capable of dealing with that, then
Mhm.
withdraw and don't become another liability where I've got to rescue you, right? Um,
Mhm.
but I got to tell you, I was in a staff meeting for my church, and we're sitting around a table, and I was like, our only option on this team is to kill people. And they're like, wait, what? And I'm like, yeah, man, all we carry are guns. So
Mhm.
our only option is to kill people. Everybody's like, well, wait a minute. No, that's not true. And I'm like, well, it is. We have not provided empty hand training, defensive tactics, and, whatever. And that's how I got his pepper spray, was because I was like, hey, oh man, I mean, like, how do you think this is going to look in court? Right.
Right.
Like if I get into a shooting, like even personally me, is a
Right.
concealed carrier. I keep pepper spray with me. And if I end up shooting somebody, they're like, well, you were just out to kill somebody. Like, no, man, I actually have pepper spray with me, but I didn't get a chance to use it because your client was shooting at me.
Yeah.
I do think I would not go beyond that though. Like when you get into like batons, there's a lot of training that goes in with that. I mean, keep it simple, right? Are
Mhm.
you going to
Keep it
get some
simple, yeah.
spray back on the pepper spray? 100% you are, right? But not as much as the guy that can't see over there, right?
Mhm.
And it's just the price that you're going to pay for the device you're using, right? I do agree with everything they're talking about, calling for help, having your cell phone, and we train that in our security team. We have somebody on, it's called dispatch, and they're monitoring the cameras, and they monitor the radios, and they're the one that calls 911 if we need it. And we just say, hey, call 911, we need cops here.
Mhm.
We have all that kind of stuff set up. It's smart. And then the other thing too is, again, this is how I enhanced how we select people on the safety team. There are certain people that should not be on a church security team, clearly. And just because you have a concealed carry permit does not mean that you should
Does
automatically
not
be on a church
qualify you.
safety team. I mean, in Idaho, it's ridiculous. I mean, you don't even have to take a class. You can just go down and go get a concealed carry permit. You don't have to do anything beyond that, right? It bothers me. And so I was in the same staff meeting, but different day. And I'm like, it's pretty sad that it's harder to get on the worship team than on the team that the elders have authorized to carry guns and kill people. And everybody's like, whoa, wait a minute. And I'm like, no, wait a minute. If I can't sing, can I get on the worship team? And they're like, no. Okay, well, there's people that can't shoot and can't, there are people that can't think. There are people that can't interact with other people. And yet we bring them on the security team.
That's like if you have a guitar and you're like, hey, I've got a guitar, so I can be in the music, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I took this class and I just took it for one day, though. I only have 8 hours of training on this guitar, but now I want to play for the worship team. No, it's not going to happen, and so it goes back to having all the tools, right? Part of that is training. It's I don't want to say personality. It's like the makeup of your person, basically, right? Like there are people that shouldn't be on it because they don't know how to communicate. They can't act in an emergency. I can tell you our best non-cop, right? So like we have a bunch of cops. It's Idaho. Every retired cop from California moved to Idaho, right?
And Montana too.
And Montana, right?
Yeah.
Our number one, not take all the cops out of it because obviously like these guys are prior SWAT. They're all like good, like they've done it. Out of all of our regular people, our number one person for decision-making, for shooting, for everything, the best all-around person is a grandma. She's a legit grandma, has grandchildren, and she's our team leader. And when we do active shooter training, she's the one with the coolest head, sometimes better than some of the ex-cops.
Yeah.
And she's the best. That's the person we need on our team, but it's the person that's most often overlooked. In fact, she was in one of my videos. You'll see her.
Oh.
She's in one of my videos on how to contact vehicles in a parking lot. And somebody made a comment like, you have a woman on your team. And I'm like, yes, we have a couple, right? And she's like, well, that's somebody like me. I didn't know I could do that. Of course you can do it. Like,
Wow.
And so that's how, if you'll see my safety team in all my videos, and nobody says no, because I always start off with, if you don't want to be in this video, let me know and I'll try to blank you out. But people are going to see themselves in you. And it's important for them to see themselves on this video so they know that they can go do this. Right.
Right.
So you're absolutely right about all these different tools and like capabilities. You're 100%. I mean, if all you do is shoot, all you do is have a hammer, then you're just going to hit nails and that's it. And it has to be more than that. I mean, like look at a SWAT team when a SWAT team does hostage rescue. I mean, we have all sorts of tools. I mean, we have everything. And we even have less lethal on top of that. Why? Because who knows? I can make an entry. I have made a hostage rescue entry where I ended up using less lethal on the suspect because there was no deadly force situation to do. But if we just went hostage rescue and then we go in there and the guy's like, come on, you can't just go bam, bam.
Right.
Like, continue on. I mean, that's not how it works, right?
Right. Yeah. And I mean, basic use of force and the legalities behind that is very important. I mean, that is essential to know if you're carrying anyway. Yeah. And we should be training those things. We call it verbal jujitsu, but we should be training that, practicing that. And I say that because I was given the opportunity last week at the Girl in a Gun National Conference to train with somebody who was doing that very type of training. And the stimulus that we had was all visual stimulus. It wasn't an auditory beep. You don't go on the beep. You have to either, you have to manage the unknown contact. What is their intent? Do they have a weapon? What's going on? I mean, and on the gun range, you're not going to get that usually at all. None of that. You're not moving. They're standing still. They're 10 yards away and you're going to do the thing. But that's not teaching you the everyday human communication skills you need to learn in order to interact with people. So
100%.
Anyway, super important. Well, thank you for addressing that. I thought that was a really good article. If you guys want to look it up, Shooting Illustrated, Shelley Hill wrote it. It's called Tool Cycling. So, okay. If there's nothing else there that you want to talk about, I have to address this last question. I know we're right at the hour, but I recently watched your video about why you got out of law enforcement, basically forced to get out of law enforcement.
Oh, yeah.
And what happened there? Could you talk talk to us about that. Are you comfortable talking about it?
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
what's going on now?
Yeah. So just before well, it's probably about 8 years ago now, I made contact with a guy, a drug addict. My team had a search warrant for him, and I was a supervisor of a street level dope team or drug team. And when I saw this guy, he was a problem child, but like nothing was going to happen to him. It's like he's not like my jury pool's Oakland and Berkeley, so nothing is going to happen to this guy. But he's a problem for the neighborhood. So I call everybody in. Hey, come, your guy's over here. He sees me. He gets ready to take off, and he and I get into a tussle. And during that tussle, bodily fluids were exchanged, and he had a virus, and I had no idea that how much damage a virus can do to your body. But when I got him in custody, he was obviously sick, and I'm a germaphobe. So I took a Purell bath on the side of the road, and I'm like, "What's wrong with you?" And he's like, "I got this virus. It was a herpes virus, not genital herpes, but like herpes B virus or something like that." And sure enough, 5 days later, I got sick. Go to the hospital. I got this virus, and I feel horrible. And
this was 8 years ago, you said, right?
it was about 8 years ago. Yeah.
Okay.
And then sure enough, I started having these horrible headaches. I mean, like it got to the point, like it was almost probably like 5 days after the virus started, because I was in and out of the hospital with problems. And finally I was just like, you know what? I think I'm having an aneurysm. And my wife takes me to the hospital, and the doctor says I have this disease called trigeminal neuralgia. And essentially what happened was this virus kicked off this disease called trigeminal neuralgia, where basically this artery is now wrapped around this nerve called the trigeminal nerve. And every time it pumps, it sends a pain signal, and the pain is so bad. I remember I was just in the worst pain I've ever been in. And I asked the doctor, I'm like, "Is this a migraine?" And he's like, "Oh no, you wish you had migraines. This is like, you're way past this." And they call it the suicide disease. And it's not because necessarily people kill themselves. It's because the suicidal ideation is so high from the pain.
Wow.
And I had brain surgery to correct this. And if you could see the back side of my ear, you'd see a very long scar behind my ear where they drill a hole, go in to where all the nerves come down from your brain, and then find that one nerve, and then you have no more myelin lining. So they've got to put myelin or not, what kind of Teflon tape around the nerve is your new myelin lining. They do all sorts of stuff. They can't relocate the artery, so they do all this like putting stuff in there to protect your artery or your nerve. And I know, it was horrible. And I tried coming back to being a cop, and it didn't work. So I had to medically retire. And it's not something I wanted to do. I mean, I liked what I was doing. I was doing my dream job. I was a sergeant in charge of a narcotics unit. It was like exactly where I wanted to be. And I was supposed to be there until I retired. It went away for a while when I retired, but now it's back. And so now I have to take medication all the time. And I know people will be like, "Oh, try this diet, this." I've done everything. It's a physical defect that like a diet, nothing is going to fix. So my choice is have another brain surgery, which I don't want to do, or basically be on this medication, until whenever, because it's never going to go away. It's going to be here forever. And so like right now, I'm due to take my meds again. I could feel it starting already. And it feels like a needle is behind my eyeball, and it's just somebody's tapping back there. And
wow,
it sucks. It's not something that I wanted necessarily to do, to leave police work. But I do believe though, part of my law enforcement training is teaching officer safety stuff. And we're so concerned, and this is really important for you that deal with homeless communities. Cops are so in tune of like, I don't want to get shot, I don't want to get stabbed, and they do all these tactics to not get shot and stabbed. And we never talk about all the germs that you're going to get from other people. And I know like cops would look at some dirty person and go, man, that guy's full of just dirtiness. I hope I don't get anything bad from him. Well, I did. And I went, 29 years with no issues, never getting sick, anything like that. I've been shot at, but never been shot. Everything was good. Right. And it was a sick, homeless guy dealing fentanyl that ruined my career, basically. Right.
Wow.
And nothing's wrong. I mean, I don't know if he's still alive, but I'm sure he's got to be dead by now of an OD. But he was walking around, no problems, never got charged, nothing. And when you deal with those homeless communities, you need to make sure you're wearing a mask, gloves, and eye protection when you deal with them. And a lot of Christians don't want to because they think it's offensive. And, you kind of don't have a choice these days, And so I teach cops, like, look, man, there's other things that are going to kill you besides bullets and knives. And it's cancer. It's all this other stuff. Like, I know far more cops that have died from cancer and suicide than have been shot or stabbed or anything along those lines. So yeah, that's the big story on that. And I did the video and I did the video because, I wasn't doing it for like sympathy or anything. What I wanted to do was, number one, because I know I have a big cop following, and I wanted them to understand, like, it wasn't a bullet that ended my career. It was a transient that spit on me. And like, that's what ruined it. Right. And then the other thing too was, I end up slurring my words a lot because, I got these problems. So my words will slur sometimes, like not now because like I do better in the evening, but like in the middle of the day, I'll be slurring my words. I'll look like I'm like, there's something wrong with me. And I'm so like, I'm on a podcast or I'm doing a video almost every day or in the classroom every day. Yeah. And like my cops, I have to tell them, like, when we come back from lunch, I have to tell them, like, hey, I'm not drunk. This is what happened. And I spend like 10 minutes telling this story, and all of them are like, oh my God, like, what happened? Like, now they all freak out. They're all scared now, which is what I want them to be scared. But you can, when I'm teaching a class, you can see it. You can hear the slurred words, I'm slow, like I'll get dizzy and almost fall over. And it's like, I have to explain it because it's a room full of cops. If I don't, they're going to be like, oh, he had some beers when he was at lunch.
Right. Yeah. You have to explain it.
Yeah.
Probably a good idea.
So yeah.
What would be your advice to anybody that's going through something unexpected, similar to what you're going through? Because I know a lot of people right now going through some pretty heavy stuff. And you seem to just, like, at least in this moment, you've got a really good attitude about it. What keeps you going?
All right. So trust me, I spent a lot of time like not like being on the pity party train, going nowhere. Yeah. And like, it's funny. I met with my friend who he was responding to a murder that just occurred, and they were afraid the murderer was running into a school, and he was driving red lights and siren. He was on a police motorcycle, and somebody ran a red light, hit him. And I remember going to the call. I thought he was going to die, and he was horrible. And he's a good Christian man too. He's a good believer. And he, I want to say 10 years after the crash, he had to have his leg amputated, and where they finally just cut it off because it was just causing him so many problems. And I was eating lunch with him, and he's getting ready to take his leg, and I was like, brother, man, I don't know what I would do if I were you. Like basically it was like, I'm getting on the path of asking the question you're going to ask. And he goes, are you kidding? Before we came here, I thought, thank God I don't have the brain problem Keith has. And so we all think, like, what I mean? Like there's always somebody that has it worse than us. Right. Yeah. Always. And then even if you have like terminal cancer, well, why is that happening? It's because either God's calling you home, or there's something greater than you in your pity party.
Yeah.
And so you can choose to have a pity party, or you can choose to turn that into a strength and do something. Right.
Yeah.
So what are you gonna do about it? Right. So for me, I turned around and did more training for cops to make sure that they don't get hurt like I did. And, I give them a narco safety class that's like, look, man, drugs are bad. There's so many things that can kill you working drug enforcement. Let's talk about all the different ways that you can die. And then when they're sufficiently freaked out, now we say, all right, these are the ways that you're going to stay alive. Right.
Mm-hmm.
If you have cancer, that's horrible, but you know where you're going. Like if it's like my daughter's friend, she just found out today her friend died, 24 years old,
Oh.
diagnosed in October with cancer, and then dies recently. And my daughter's tore up, and it's like, my daughter's a believer, and I'm like, well, God wanted her to come home, and that's not for us to judge, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then if you're suffering, the Bible is full of suffering. I mean,
Yeah, it is.
I heard this great comment on a podcast. It was a Christian podcast, and they said if there wasn't suffering, people would be unsufferable. And I'm like, they would, right?
Yeah.
And look, you could either deal with it, or not deal with it, but like cry about it and just be like, woe is me. Or you can just be strong about it and say, I'm just going to continue on anyways. I mean, I just, I think back to Old Testament Job, where he's being tested. I mean, like, go back and read that, man. We think we have it bad. We don't have it bad, and then why is it happening? And Job was still faithful,
Yeah.
And like, what person do you want to be?
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that just doesn't mean that you are like, oh, everything's fine and never have a pity party. I mean, certainly go have a pity party, but you don't make it a 24/7 event,
Wow, you are so inspirational, Keith. There's so much more that we could talk about. No, really. I mean, imagine the people that you're touching just by being on this show and through your channel. I mean, that impact is so large, and it has a ripple effect. And so, I mean, I know that, but I think you need to be reminded of that. You're doing such good work.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, it's an absolute honor to have you on tonight. So, and I wanted people to know that, because I know there's a lot of people struggling right now. I mean, just people in my, sphere that I know that could maybe hear that tonight. So, yeah.
Keep your head up, man.
Yeah. Well, we're past the hour now. There aren't any extra questions. Hi, Adam. Funny to see you here.
Keith, we didn't even scratch the surface. I know this is without Laura's permission. But can we browbeat you, bribe you? I'll give you a whole $1 if you'll come back.
Yeah, I'll come back for sure. Let me know.
We need to get you back. You have a way, and you have a message, and you're the right messenger.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, and we have audience members right now commenting that you need to come back. So I'm not the only one that feels that way, me and Adam. So I think everyone would like to have you back. If you're willing to do that, we could schedule another show, because we could go a lot deeper than we went tonight. I mean, you think an hour is a long time to get a lot of information across. It turns out not so much, especially when Laura has a tidbit of the week. So I'll wrap it up for tonight. Where can people find you, Keith? And do you have any parting thoughts before we leave?
So they can find me over at christianwarriortraining.com. You can pretty much get everything there on the Christian side. My final parting thoughts. I always leave my YouTube videos with the same thing. Remember your ABCs. Always be caring. And I mean that. I mean that sincerely, because it's biblical. I mean, we know what the Bible says, and we know that we're going to be persecuted. We know that we know what happens. In the end, God wins, right? But we know that there's a lot of suffering from now until then. And you can either choose to be prepared and take care of your people, or you can choose to put your head in the sand. But I would not do that. I would remember my ABCs and always be caring.
Amen. That's great. Awesome. Well, will you stay in the green room? I'm going to finish up the
Yeah.
show, Keith, but if you can stay behind the scenes because I have a few more things I want to run by you.
Yep. No problem.
Thank you so much for your time.
Take care.
Oh my gosh, guys, that was an awesome show. I cannot wait to have him on again. Oh, man. There's so much that we didn't unpack that we could have unpacked. Am I right? And if there are any questions that you want me to ask Keith in the next show, you can email those to me, laura@defenders-usa.com. I would love to hear from all of you guys. So quick shout out to all of my paid supporters on the locals.com channel. I love all of you dearly. I know that there has been a short hiatus recently. And the reason is because if I don't have something valuable to offer you, I'm not going to put something up just for the sake of putting something up. So I'm working on new content. I've got a few things coming up. But I just want to thank all of you guys for supporting us. So for those of you that don't know, the Locals community is where I post exclusive Defenders Live content that you won't see anywhere else. And it's also where I host Defenders Uncensored. Defenders Uncensored is a series of roundtable discussions where we candidly talk about issues that some might consider controversial, but we don't think should be. And they're on Locals because other platforms might not want them on the platform. So it's our only safe place we can go for that. And the door just opened by itself. That was weird. Anyway, so come to the Defenders Live community at locals.com and you can search Defenders Live in the Discover tab if you're interested in becoming a part of that community. And then next week, what you can expect, I'm going to have Bethel Wagner on next week from Sage Wellness, and we're going to be doing a deep dive on breath work, why it's important for your mental state, not only in shooting, but in your everyday life. And I have to admit, I was a little bit of a skeptic at first, but I'm starting to catch on to this whole breathwork thing. And there is definitely something to it. So I want to give you guys all the tools that you can have in your toolbox to be a better defender in all ways. Also, in the slightly near far future, we're going to have in the lineup Cade Lamb, who is Mark Lamb's son, the sheriff in Arizona, forget which county. Austin Knutson, the Attorney General of Montana, will be on. Gabe New, Cassie Crago. If you don't know these names, don't worry. You'll hear about them later. Mike Ox will be on soon. Sandra Woodruff has agreed to come on, A Girl and a Gun. And Whitney Lindsay of Heligunner will be coming on soon, as well as two repeats. Tiffany Johnson and AJ Zito have agreed to come back as well. And we've got a lot more people to announce.
All right, I got you. I think she froze up on me.
Yeah, she disappeared on me too. She'll be back any second.
All right. It's
She
that
probably-
Montana internet.
Yeah, she's actually on Starlink, and then she has another internet provider just in case one goes down. And we're having problems with both sometimes, it seems. So
Gotcha.
we're in
Hey,
Idaho area.
Outside of Boise, town called
Okay.
Eagle.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.